LS swap. When should you do an LS swap? Let's talk about it. See, there are multiple factors that determine if a LS swap is actually feasible, like the dollar to horsepower ratio of a particular engine that came in your car, meaning the original engine. Like, let's say you have a new Edge Mustang, right? And you want 1,000 horsepower. You have to fully build that, which is going to take about maybe $8 to $1,000 versus a 5.3 LS or a 4.8 LS, right? Those things are handling anywhere from 7 to 1,000 horsepower and above all day with nothing more than piston ring gap. Hell, unopened blocks are handling 1,000 horsepower with nothing more than a good tune and maybe 20 to 25 pounds of boost. But LS swaps aren't cheap. You see, you still have to take into account, okay, am I going to add a cam in this engine? Am I going to do the engine work first before I drop it into a vehicle? And then after that, you have to determine what ECU and harness you're going to run if you aren't going to run the stock ECU and harness. Transmission, you have to decide if you're going to get a dry shaft fabricated. You also got to figure out what type of gear ratio you're going to run in your rear end. You know, what type of differential you're going to use. You have to decide what type of fuel you're going to run. Are you going to run E85, right? Are you going to get a flex fuel kit? It ain't cheap. These LS swaps can range anywhere from about maybe $5,000 depending on if you have a donor vehicle, all the way to maybe $50,000. It's not cheap. That's why I said, like, you don't just up and decide you want an LS swap, because as the years progress, the prices of 5.3s are going through the roof. But don't let the price scare you, because there are still millions upon millions of these damn 5.3 LSs and 4.8s out there. And the only thing you got to do is just go to a junkyard or go to eBay and get one for maybe $800 to about $1,500, depending on what generation you have. Do you have a Gen 4? Do you have a Gen 3? Do you have a LT based 5.3? You could even get lucky and find a 5.3 on Facebook Marketplace for nothing more than $500, and the only thing you got to do is change the rod bearings. Is the LS powerful? That depends on what LS you get, but the 4.8 and the 5.3, well, 6.0s basically are pretty crappy until you do something to them. And I'm only talking about the truck engines, not the LS2 and stuff like that. No, just talking about the LQ4, the LQ9, the 4.8 and the 5.3. Those are pretty much dog turds until you add a cam and other things in them. That's where they shine. As far as the aftermarket, it is huge. It is huge, dog. You got to think about this. The first LS engine was the LS1, which debuted back in 1997. We have over 2 decades worth of LS engines, just to put that in perspective. Now, something like a Coyote, well, it's actually better than the 4.8, the 5.3, and the 6.0s. But in terms of, dollar to horsepower ratio, you gotta have some money dealing with Coyotes. And if you're going to do an LS swap, the last thing you want to do is nickel and dime yourself to death. Meaning, you want everything. You want the whole engine. If you could get the engine, the transmission, and the harness all together, that'll be good. Because getting a 5.3 long block, then finding the accessory drive, the right alternator, the right intake manifold, something that works for you. You know, finding a flywheel. All of that is going to be that's going to be hell, dog. You don't want to do that. So you definitely want to make sure you have everything, because this shit does get expensive. It don't have to be outrageously overpriced, but it does get expensive.